And we are live. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our final panel discussion for DYLTS23. This is our final lunchtime panel discussion, part of our Beyond DYLTS session, in which we're bringing DYLTS to all of you. Of course, the delegates who are, some of them are still with us in this lunchtime discussion. They would have been interacting in the sessions and the activities for the past 5 days being completed. Just about now, they just finished about half an hour ago the final teaching session of there was the final session on the agenda. Ronnie, you've been with us for all of it, and we are happy to have you along with our other skylights with us on DYLTS. Fallon as well has been with us, and the two of you have been, waving the sky flag throughout DYLTS and, really being there with the delegates throughout all these sessions. It's fine. It's the final day 5, our second DYLTS since reviving it last year. How has that experience been for you so far, Ronnie?
So far it's been pretty good. We had some good teaching sessions, talked a lot about what it means to practically implement, our theology, learning a lot about ministry, developing our ministry, how to sustain the ministries that we create. And I think the delegates, the participants learned a lot throughout the past 5 days. It was definitely packed, but still digestible, and we had fun with it as well.
Yeah, definitely agreed. One of the aspects of ministry, which I don't think we got too far into it, but we're going to explore a bit into in this panel discussion, is really incorporating ministry into our lives as a career. We see all around us ministers who have devoted their life to ministry. They have devoted everything to that, and it's pretty much their whole career. And so even as we know at our young ages, try to balance ministry and other things, there will become a point where some of us will decide, along with that urging of the Lord in our spirit, that, hey, you know what? Maybe this is what I want to do full time. This is what I want to do as my career. And we know there are different ways that you can go about doing that. We have examples of missionaries who go abroad to a foreign country and do work there. We also have local presbyters who stay in their island or in their circuit pretty much for the entire career. Then we have our itinerant ministers. We have presbyters who do more of the administrative work, more of the pastoring work. They're the ones that go on to lead our circuits and districts and connection. And we have the deacons, which we are going to talk a bit more about today, and we're privileged to have with us the chairwoman of the Wesley Diaconal Community, our kind of community for deacons in our connection, Reverend Janice Sawyer Delaney. She will be joining us to talk a bit more about deacons and kind of where it all fits into the entire ministry of our church. And so she'll be joining us soon as we get into talking about deacons today. Right. Welcome, Reverend Janice. Happy to have you, the director of the Wesley Diaconal Community at MCC. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. I am doing well. I am really, really at this moment excited because I'm just coming out of a special ministry.
Okay, nice. And so we want to talk to you a bit about deacons. I think a lot of persons will be familiar if you ask them to describe the itinerant minister. They'll probably describe what a presbyter is. I'm not sure how many persons will be able to describe and explain what a deacon is. And so I think you're probably the best person, definitely as director of the community. You, if anybody should know, it will be you. And so I want you to tell us a bit about deacons and really their role in the church, how they fit into everything.
Okay. Let me begin by going to the biblical basis where we first meet deacons in the New Testament, and that is in Acts chapter 6. That was the middle of what I would say is the growth, the beginning of the church. Because after the Holy Spirit came upon the apostles who were waiting in Jerusalem as Jesus had told them, and Peter gave his great sermon on that day, and you had over 3,000 being added to this new way, then the church began to grow. And they recognized in examining the ministry that was being done that there was an aspect of ministry which the word is used as was being neglected. So the word was being preached. Persons no doubt would have been healed both spiritually and physically, but they saw that the aspect, what they referred to as we would refer to it also as that social aspect of ministry. So the widows were needed to get in the most basic form, the daily portion, that which would sustain them. And that social aspect, they thought that they needed to, fill that void. And it is interesting what happened there, because they didn't just say, okay, we pick these, you. No, but they looked for persons who were, and they started with, full of the Holy Spirit. And this is something that in the church we have to understand, that what makes the difference between any other philanthropic organization or charitable organization is that our focus, our foundation, where we get our guidance and our support from, is the Holy Spirit. And therefore, for us in the Methodist Church in the Caribbean and the Americas, hence you see that the training that we as deacons get speak to that foundation as well. So you're no less qualified than a presbyter. If you hear any noise, pardon me, but I'm in the middle of a location where we just had a graduation for a preschool. So all the energy is, is very exuding.
No problem. No, you talk about the deacons not being any less, qualified than the presbyters, and I might even add that has come, that has led to the detriment kind of what really deacons are supposed to do, because you almost see deacons now being pushed into those presbyter-like roles. How has that affected really the core ministry of deacons? Have you still been able to effectively carry out your focus on that kind of social aspect of things, or has the more presbyter-like work kind of taken over?
I would say that in many instances, the deacons in the MCCA we have found ourselves using, if I use the term that we use in the church, due to the exigencies of the work, we have found ourselves filling the role of the presbyter. In many instances, we are looking after the congregations, sometimes one, sometimes two, sometimes three. I have a colleague in another district who is in a circuit, and she has 4 congregations. That is a circuit with 4 congregations, and she is there as a deacon, and she's been there for a number of years now. And the official superintendent of the circuit is someone who is in another circuit as a superintendent in another circuit. So for all intents and purposes, really, she is, as a deacon, the person on the ground. And yes, it affects the,
It seems like she has dropped out for a while, but we just give her a couple moments to get back. In the meantime, Ron, I guess you would have heard about that aspect, that the deacon is there to do that, again, more focus on the social aspect of ministry. Do you think that enough has been done so far to, I guess, highlight that kind of ministry? You know, a lot of times when, for even myself in growing up, when we were told, you know, we should go and become a minister, it's always pushing us in the way of preaching, pushing us in the way of pastoring. Do you think that enough has been done to really highlight the person that, hey, there is another option, there is this thing called deacon where you can more be in the community and do this more social work?
Yeah, so definitely not. I myself, excuse me, would have been unaware of, you know, the role that a deacon plays in our church. And there's definitely more that we need to do to highlight to persons who would be interested in ministry. Well, hey, you can do this. There's also you know, the role of a deacon and all that they do as it pertains to ministry and their social work and what's not. So for sure, we need to highlight it more and inform persons more that there's more to ministry within our church than just, you know, being a preacher.
But John, I mean, I have to say that in my territory, North Trinidad, we have always had somewhat, for most of part, presence of a deacon. So, you know, the diaconate is not something that is abstract or foreign to us. And, you know, we will know that it's the work of a deacon is more of service, not so much of sacraments and stuff like that. It's of service, but unfortunately, as Reverend Janice would have said, the deacons end up getting funneled into the role of the presbyter because of, I guess, you know, little hands on deck. So yeah,
I think that then gives us a problem which definitely needs solving. And you know, I would like to hear, Reverend Janice, if you know what, I guess, so far has been found as the solution, if anything, and if not, what do you think we can probably do, even on a level like South Caribbean Youth, to help solve this problem? The problem of one person's, you know, not being aware of really different types of ministry and the fact that deacons and the diaconate ministry does exist, but also that when they do decide to buy into it, when they do decide to pursue it, that they actually get what they signed up for, that they actually do get to be involved in that kind of service ministry and not again, like Fallon said, get funneled into the more presbyter-like stuff.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Let me say, first of all, that undoubtedly we have to do more marketing, more education surrounding the ministry of the deacon. And we have to marry that with helping the congregations to see the need for focused ministries. I know in the Methodist Training Institute, which is coming on stream in another couple weeks, where we will begin our teaching, our courses in September, there will be a course, Introduction to Youth Ministries, for example. So that will help persons to focus on no youth ministries. As I said, I'm just coming from one of the ministries that as deacons we undertake, and that is during the summer, we are very much hands-on and involved in the Vacation Bible School. I would have done 2 weeks of Vacation Bible School, 1 week at one congregation and this week at another congregation. And one of the things that I recognize is that even though across the circuit, we had agreed on the same curriculum to use in all 16 of the congregations, I was able to use that comfortably last week as we had planned in that congregation. But now this week, in this congregation, from the get-go, I have come to realize that I cannot use it as I used it last week or as it was intended. Because the children, even though they are of the same age range, they are cognitively and otherwise, they are not at that level. So for example, we were using word search and the children were not able to find the words. They had to be given, a lot of oversight. And when you have your hands in a lot of different things, you are not going to be able to focus and pick up those differences and therefore strategize and minister in a relevant way. And that's one of the things that we have to help our congregations to understand, that we cannot just be shooting wildly. We have to have a target. We have to have goals, objectives based on our analysis of the situation. And therefore, we roll out a ministry that is relevant. And we are also able to assess and reassess it as we go along. So we have to be flexible as well, not just relevant in the start, but we also have to be flexible as we go along, so that we can adapt, and really help to bring about that transformation which we need.
Definitely. I think when you talk about that, one of the things that then comes to mind, and you talked about that course dealing with youth ministries, is, do we have a diverse enough youth ministry right now? I think of many congregations and many youth where in worship, there might be a lot of diversity, whether they want to dance, they want to sing, they want to preach, they want to pray, they want to read, even do the notices. There's a lot of diverse and opportunities for that. But how often are the opportunities promoted and given to do more service-oriented work? How often, are we in the community? How often are we in the schools, in those islands that have Methodist schools? How often are we, meeting with shut-in members and really giving back to them, meeting with the needy in our towns and giving back to them? I think, you raise a point, and I think when you talk about the youth ministries, that maybe it starts from there. Maybe our way of promoting the deacon ministry starts from, our youth ministries and the opportunities that we give. I'm interested to hear what Ronnie and Fallon would think about that. Like the same way that we kind of have mandated, or it's become a norm now to have third Sunday, a day in the month where worship, is pretty much done by the youth, and you've sanctified that day for worship, led by the youth. Is there a place for other kinds of ministries being kind of set in stone in our month, set in stone that, hey, we want youth to engage in something like this once a month?
Well, yeah, so beyond just Youth Sunday once a month, I think, excuse me, I think there is a need for the youth to be more involved in service ministry, because we go to church, we get the opportunity to have a certain level of involvement once a month on Youth Sunday, and there's nothing outside of that. And how do we foster a church that understands that ministry and service ministry is important and is who we are if we don't practice it? So it's something for sure that we need to do more of.
And what I would like to add, John, is that I think as youth leaders ourselves, we need to actually, because maybe some people don't have the information, we need to actually, I don't want to say promote, but inform the youth and the young adults of the other ministries in the church, including the other pulpit ministries and even the diaconate, the local presbytery, because they may see, but they may not fully understand. And some persons may be called to it, but they just don't have the information on how do I get from point A to point B. If I'm to become a deacon, do I have to become a local preacher first? Like that kind of thing. So I think that we ourselves as youth and young adults need to start to take that responsibility to inform our other, the younger ones who we may be mentoring, to inform them about the ministries that the church needs, that the church is lacking, I should say. Because I'm positive that, God has called so many, but they just don't know. How are they to know unless someone sends? So, I think that's where we come in as youth leaders. We too need to start to promote and tell people about all of the different ministries and all the different opportunities and the careers that can be found within the church and ways that they can serve God through the church, in the kingdom of Christ. So I think that's something that we need to even add to our calendar, some promotion of the different ministries. Just giving persons information, informing them and empowering them to help guide them into the ministry that maybe God is calling them to be in.
What Sister Fallon has said is very interesting. And you've made some very valid points. In May, in our circuit, we were observing Child's Month. And one of the activities we involved the children in was outreach to the community. And one of the congregations where I serve, we decided, okay, on the Sunday afternoon, the adults will go with the children to the homes of the shut-ins. They would take fruit baskets, they would sing, read a scripture, and just, pray and chat with them. And the children were so delighted to do that. And the shut-ins were so appreciative of it. And something like that is a ministry. That is a ministry in itself. Because yes, you are homebound, or we used to say shut in. But then because of the health pandemic, the COVID pandemic, even the persons who would have visited no longer visited. And even though officially the pandemic is over, there's still persons who are saying they're not going. So you have our members there who are alone and feeling lonely. And then on a Sunday afternoon, you have some children who have gone and visited them, and they appreciate it so very much. And I remember growing up, and I have an aunt who was in the Wesleyan Holiness Church, and they have what they call bands. So this is like a few members would go around to persons who are homebound and give them some little devotion, and they may take some monetary gift or something tangible for them. And that was their ministry. So one of the things that we have to do is help persons to understand the concept of a ministry and help them to understand what is their gifting that they can use in a particular ministry, because their ministry might not be to do anything in the congregation, in the chapel on a Sunday morning, but their ministry might be out in the community. You have children who have fallen through the cracks with their education, and you see that from early, that they are just not coping. So somebody might have a ministry taking care of those children, giving them after school tutoring, using the facilities that we have. We have many congregations where the chapel is open only on a Sunday for a worship service for a few hours, and then it is closed for the rest of the week. So if you have a ministry to children where you are helping them with their education, then you can go into that chapel or that space, whether it's a hall or wherever it is, at least 2 or 3 afternoons per week. And there you are undertaking your ministry.
Okay. I think that, when we look at the story of Solomon, something that we don't, really highlight a lot before is what came before he asked God for wisdom. He was prepared. David, in the presence of Solomon, prayed to God, asking that, this child would know what to ask for, to give this child wisdom. And so when Solomon was presented with that opportunity, he knew exactly what to ask for, because he was in the presence of his father, who was praying and asking that he would have that. I think similarly, it is really good what you're able to do with your children, kind of exposing them already to ministry in that way, so that when they are in the future presented with opportunities where they themselves are the ones who get to lead these ministries, they already know exactly what to do. It'd be interesting to hear some of about your story as to how you were able to be brought to that point. How did you first get involved in all these things? What are some of the experiences that would have shaped you into becoming a deacon and not, going into a role like a presbyter role? So can you tell us a bit about your story and kind of your origin story as a deacon?
Okay. Well, I just gave away a bit of it when I spoke of my aunt, how she used to go with other members and visit. But within the Methodist Church itself, I value my Sunday school teaching. My Sunday school teachers ministered to me. And after I was confirmed and I wanted to interact with other young people, I joined a youth group, and the leaders of the youth group, they ministered to me. And then I started actually teaching in Sunday school. So I was giving back, and I started working with the youth group and the youth class. And it was a progressive move for me. I just felt God calling me to a little more and a little more and a little more. And I did not see myself having great administrative skills. And when I reflected on the presbyterate and the diaconate, I felt really, with all my experience of working with children and young people, that the fit for me really was the diaconate and not the presbyterate, where I would have had administrative duties over congregations and so forth. Of course, there was a senior member in the congregation who said to me, okay, whenever you change your mind, you can call me and let me know, because she was convinced that I should have been a presbyter, and I was convinced, no, a deacon. And I would say I have the heart of a deacon. And this is something that, if you talk to any of the deacons in the Methodist Church in the Caribbean and the Americas, they will tell you, and others who work along with them or observe them will tell you, there's something about the heart of those persons who are members of the Wesley Diaconal community that makes a difference. Yeah. So that's really how I came into the diaconate.
How do we then give person those opportunities before? So if I want to be a preacher, become a local preacher, seems pretty easy. Express to the pastor, I have a desire to become a local preacher, and easy like that. I'm a preacher on note, go through the classes, exams, stuff like that, work my way up to fully accredited preacher. What is that like for the deacon? Where do we start?
All right. So you start by serving. You start right where you are. You know that little saying, bloom where you're planted. So you start where you are and you start doing whatever you believe that you have the skill or the interest to do. And the Holy Spirit is going to draw you into more and into more, and more opportunities are going to open for you, and you are not going to reject them. You're going to embrace them because of your servant's heart. And unless you feel called to be an evangelist, you don't need to be a local preacher before you candidate for ministry as a deacon. So if you feel like to be a deacon evangelist, and we have one such person, Reverend Tene Joseph Yap, in the North Trinidad Circuit. But other than that, you don't have to be a local preacher before.
But Reverend Janice, and I myself, I feel so boxed in, and I totally understand what you say, like when God calls you, it's almost just like that People will say, becoming a deacon, you're limiting yourself, and you're like, but this is what God has called me to. He has called me to be a presbyter. There's a saying I say, when God called me, it was not conference call, it was a call between him and myself. But I still feel as though like it's still somewhat like a boxed in. Because for example, I'm called to diaconate, but I'm also called to, I'm a preacher. I have the gift of preaching. So I'm a preacher. I'm an accredited local preacher. One of the youngest in our South Caribbean. But I don't think I'm an evangelist. But I'm passionate about youth and young adults work. And it's like you feel so passionate about different things, but it's like you have to home in on one. What kind of guidance is there? But like me, okay, the diaconate, yes. but you're a local preacher, so you know, you think if you go into the orphanage, you're going into be an evangelist. But no, you're actually really, I mean, you have done psychology and you're into working with adolescents and youth and young adults. What is available, what counseling is available to us persons who feel called, but not necessarily to fit into the boxes that are there? How do we,
It's very interesting, Sister Fallon, because I was a local preacher, a fully accredited local preacher before I went to UTC to do my studies. So it's not because you preach that you must be a presbyter.
Or an evangelist.
Or an
evangelist.
evangelist.
Yeah.
However, let me hasten to say that when you think of evangelists, you have to think of the entire church. So you have those who are coming in by baptism as infants, and you have those who are on their way out as elderly members. So you're evangelizing from 0 to 100 plus. Of course, the message is the same, but you're going to share that message in a different way based on the age and the understanding of the particular persons. So you can evangelize youth and young adults. And having been a fully accredited preacher, it means that you have an edge. Everything that you have in your toolbox, you will need to use it as a deacon. I am able to use learning that I got outside of the church. I'm able to use it as a deacon. I always say to persons, nothing you learn will be wasted. So don't ever think for one moment that because you're a fully accredited local preacher that you must be an evangelist and you can't focus on youth and young adult ministry. No, that's not so at all. I would say that it's an advantage that you have, that's an edge.
Thank you.
And on the other side, as in those persons that aren't, trained in preaching, and I know of at least one deacon, like I can guarantee you, I know at least one deacon who, her focus is more on the medical side of things. And here we have somebody like Ronnie, who, her career is going along that side of things, that industry. Where is that path again? We don't have, for example, like a clinic or something like that here in our district right now. But what path is there for, let's say, somebody like Ronnie, who, going about through whether it's pharmaceutical or medical or dental studies, stuff like that, but it's also interested in using these things for the Lord. Where would you direct them?
Okay, thank you. Well, one of the changes that we have been wrestling with as Wesley Diaconal community is the introduction of local deacons. I am an itinerant minister, so I travel, but the concept of a local deacon is similar to that of a local presbyter. So the individual will undertake their diaconal work without leaving their circuit. They will operate within their circuit. But when you have someone who has that area of specialty, pharmaceutical, medical, or nursing, that is always needed, especially in this day and age when we are encouraging persons more and more to make healthy lifestyle choices and to focus more on their health, not just your physical health, but your mental health. And we have even children, and there's so much medication around that if someone who is into the pharmaceutical aspect of a career can use that expertise to educate us, maybe more of us in circuits will take better care of our health and not rely on, okay, when I get sick, they're always developing more and more drugs, so there will be some drug that can help me. But Sister Rania would be able to say, prevention is definitely better than cure. And she will be able to tell us of the impact of some drugs, their side effect on our health. So you start taking a drug to help you with one medical condition, and that affects some other aspect of your health. So now you have to get 2 or 3 drugs, and then you become like a walking pharmacy, for example. And if we're going to be stewards of this one body that we have, then surely a ministry from a pharmacist will definitely help us.
Okay, and I guess as you guys, seek to explore that idea of a local deacon, Ronnie, what kind of things would you be looking, let's say you presented with an opportunity to engage in ministry, still in your expertise, but on a local level, what would that have to look like, for a young person like you?
For me, where my career would be going, interestingly enough, yes, I would have thought about things that I could do to be of service to my church, within the circuit. Just starting as basic as I think we used to do it before, continuing doing blood pressure checks, continuing doing blood sugar checks, cholesterol checks, and yes, of course, focusing on we go to church for our spiritual health. We have to take care of our physical as well, and also mental. So being able to contribute in that way, and me in my own capacity as well as others, honing in on the skills that the youth have, especially those young adults who are going into now entering their career life. What do they do? What skills would they have that they could then utilize to have a ministry that is of service to the community, to the church on a whole. So I think we need to place the focus on that, so that we can have that development of ministry, especially as it relates to being a deacon as well.
Reverend Janice, what do you think of that?
I support that 100%. The older ones, we really have to help the younger ones find their way, help them to see that whatever expertise they have is useful. Sometimes people say, I can't do nothing, or I don't know what I can do. But those of us who have a trained eye and who have experience can say to them, but I notice you do such and such, and that can be useful. So I want to invite you to begin by using that and see where it takes you.
Now, finally, we have, I guess, a position, youth pastor, and even our MCCA president, MCA youth president, I believe. Well, he either is or was as of recently a youth pastor. Where is that kind of role for the deacon coming up? And what would you say are kind of the first steps for us to implement something like that if it isn't already there?
The arrangement of having a youth pastor is entirely up to a congregation or a circuit. If a congregation recognizes there's a need and they feel strongly enough about it that they're prepared to invest in it and make a difference, that is an arrangement that they can make. They will decide what expertise the person shall come with, what qualifications they would want the person to have, and then they can also decide, so these are the roles and this is the function in which we want this person to operate.
Okay. And then I'm definitely hoping that as we, as a district, continue to move towards, I guess, the promotion of those kind of youth ministries through the Methodist Training Institute, MTA, and that course dealing with youth ministries, and then South Caribbean youth as well with our Ministry Essentials course running pretty much, I think, at the same time. Definitely hoping to see a lot more promotion of these non-presbyter like ministries, non-preaching ministries, which are, yes, important, but we need to also have that service work. You know, we have a CAP called Mission, Outreach, and Service, and we definitely need to lean just as heavily into the service as we do into the mission and outreach. Reverend Janice,
Mission Outreach and church growth is the official title of that CAP. Mission Outreach
and church
and
growth.
church growth. And let me say that I lost the point I was going to make. Yeah, but
No problem.
if we care enough, if we pay enough attention, we will see that there are many, many areas of need and that each person can fit into some area of need. And we just have to appreciate it as a ministry, promote it as a ministry, and be serious enough, committed enough. Because one of the aspects of focus for us is stewardship. And if we are really focused on stewardship, we will undertake some ministry or other. Yes.
Okay. Reverend Janice, we appreciate you being with us and sharing as we talked a bit about deacons. Ronnie, Fallon, thanks again as usual for your input. And as you guys are part of South Caribbean Youth and part of the youth and young adult ministry in our district, we're definitely looking forward to what you would have taken away from Reverend Janice, and how we're going to help promote this culture in our district, in which persons know about deacons and also can aspire to be one and embody and really own those service ministries across our community. Thank you all for joining us, and this is the end of our day 5 lunchtime panel discussion here at DYLTS23, our final day of DYLTS23. You can join us back live for our closing ceremony at 6 p.m. this evening right here on YouTube. Just go onto the YouTube channel, the South Caribbean Youth YouTube channel, and you'll see the link for that. And we look forward to seeing all of you join us for our closing ceremony. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.